Okay, so in this session, let's discuss about regularization techniques. So what regularization actually means is we use it usually to avoid the network from overfitting or underfitting, right? So let's talk about regularization. Okay, so what actually is regularization is usually in kind of a deep learning network. So usually deep learning networks will tend to overfit. Okay, in I'm talking now in only in terms of like deep learning, deep neural networks. Okay, so let me write deep neural networks. So usually, like I think we have discussed already in a previous session, like while we are talking about classical machine learning, how what kind of regulation techniques what we have. So similarly, now we are discussing in terms of like deep neural networks, like how like regularization works. Usually, like in deep neural networks, will tend to overfit. Okay, so what we use is like the regularization is very much needed in case of deep while you are going for deeper and deeper networks, right? So usually they'll tend to overfit. So what you do is like you actually use some kind of a regularization techniques to avoid that overfitting. Okay, so let's discuss those. Okay, so what we can do is like it means like if what is a kind of overfitting, what you feel is like in case if it is overfitting, it means it's not generalizing for the data, right? Not generalizing for unseen data. So it means like what does it means? Like it means for training it is doing very well. So let me draw something. Training loss, it's like almost coming towards zero, but if you see the validation loss, it's not. So there is a big difference here. So that is where we call it overfitting, right? So this scenario is overfitting where you have a lot of difference between your training and testing loss, right? So this is like scenario, we call it overfitting. So let's see what different things what we can do. Okay, so one of them, so always it need not be a problem from network side, it can be a problem from the data as well. Okay, so it means it your training set did not cover the different variations of your data, maybe did not have like more samples, data samples, right? So one of them is like you provide more data, so that is for training. So but how much data you can provide, right? So you have a limited data set with you and which was annotated, and top of that you want to like train a model by doing a split of train test or like maybe train validation and test split that way. So you can't actually get more, maybe there are like cases where you can't get like more data, and actually getting data is also expensive like in most of the cases. Okay, because you also need annotation like team like who should be annotating each of the images or maybe some other data as well, right? So the annotation is also a costly affair. So most of the cases you may not be getting more data. So in such kind of scenario, what you can go for is data augmentation. So this is also like recommended in case when even though you have a possibility to get more data, still you can use this technique. Why? Because actually what data augmentation is so with the available data, you make minor changes to it and like make minor changes to your data and create new data to your to available data and create new data set. So this is what augmentation is. So it can be something like, so in case of images, what you can do is maybe you can rotate the image and that will be your new image. Okay, so similarly you can blur the image or maybe shuffle some place here to there and here to there, something like that, and then you can actually create maybe rotate by 45 degree, rotate by 90 degree. You can do these kind of steps, and like make kind of like generate a new image from it, right? So it is like at least slightly different from a new image. So that is one thing you can use. Or maybe reduce the brightness, increase the brightness, reduce the contrast, increase the contrast. So those are your new image, new images. So those are like for one image, by doing like rotation by zero, like 90 degrees, rotation by 45 degrees. So maybe rotation by 180 degrees. Let's take this one, and increase brightness, decrease brightness. So similarly, increase contrast, decrease contrast. So like this, like so many you can do, right? So these are like few things. So maybe flip the image, flip. It means like it will be reverse. So maybe same techniques, similar techniques you can also use for other data sets, other kind of data as well. This is for image, right? So one image you have, like you have a single image, you can do all these things, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you got like now 8 images. So just one image. Now it means your data set has been like previously, maybe if you have 1,000 image data set, now it has become 8,000. Like it increased by 8 times just by doing data augmentation. So this is one way to increase your data, right? So like because you can't, if you can't get like more annotations, so annotated data so easily. So this is one thing, one way to do it. Okay. So this is about data augmentation. And okay, so we are good with data now. Okay, still like if the model is not doing good, so there may be problem with the model itself. Okay, so what you can do is use some kind of techniques. Now what I'll be discussing those. So to adopt your model to make it not war fit. Okay, so one of them may be something like this. So we use a dropout. So what dropout layer will do is, let's say you have a network. So war fitting will also occur if your model is like more complex than what is required, right? So you make it like more deeper, and maybe it's not necessary that way. So let's take this kind of a network. Okay, so this is the way, and then so in the sense like what dropout actually means is, so let's say this is your layer, and these are the kind of, so let's say this is a kind of network what you have, and you are facing some kind of overfitting. You observed there is a overfitting to it. So then what you do is you randomly, like maybe for this layer, let's say we are applying dropout for this layer. So what you do is you randomly make few activations as 0. Like we can give a ratio like how much you want to make it 0. So let's say if you have some 100 layers here. Okay, so 100 cells in this layer. Okay, so in this 100, what you do is you can give a ratio how many you want to keep and how many you want to make it 0. Okay, so let's say like 0.2 is what you want to keep, and the rest 0.8 you want to remove. It's like 20% you keep, 80% you remove. So what you do is out of this 100, randomly it will pick 80 of these and make it 0. Okay, so all these, like it will make it 0, and the rest it will stay the same. So out of which 20 it will keep, and 80 zeros. Okay, it means that connection does not exist, right? So if it is 0, it actually every of your like this, like everything will get connected, right? So and similarly everything will get connected here, right? So what you are doing is this value, even though what value it has, it will give 0 only, and then so it means 0 is being connected to the rest part. So it means like actually till there whatever activation is there, it doesn't happen. Okay, so by randomly doing it, so what will happen is you are forcing your model to train with low number of capacity. Okay, only with the small layer, because only these three, right? Because till here all these three, like we randomly made it 0. So what will happen is you are forcing your model to learn with only these, with the limited capability, right? So then what will happen is, it's like it will reduce your overfitting, because if you randomly make few things as 0, it doesn't, it's like it will help you in making the model not remember the patterns rather than try to make your model. Okay, and by doing this indirectly you are reducing the complexity, right? So that is way it will work, and finally it will help you in what you say, like learning much better and reducing the accuracy, sorry, reducing the overfitting. Okay, so this is how like you can do, like this is how the dropout layer will work. Okay, so and by using this you are actually reducing overfitting. So usually it's not just in single layer, you can use dropout in every layer as well. So there is an implementation directly available where you can call directly tf.layer.dropout in TensorFlow, or maybe in PyTorch as well. Like these implementation is directly available, which will randomly do this. Okay, but one thing to remember, this dropout, you by random selection here, you only do it in training. You don't do again, like this dropout is ineffective like while testing. Like anyway those will be 0, right? So you don't again randomly make few cells 0 while testing. Okay, so only this dropout only in training. So unlike after training, whatever is like model remain, you make that, and don't again, you won't be again doing dropout again randomly making few cells as 0. That you won't do it again and again. Okay, so this is how like dropout layer works. And but by doing this, okay, so like in testing you are using like entire layer. So previously you used only like let's say out of 100 you have used only 50, let's say take 50 as input, and from that like you are able to do it. Okay, so but in training, like sorry, in testing, what you use is all 100, right, instead of 50. So but here the output value will be slightly different, right? So to scale it, what you do is you multiply it with the like probability, like how much you have removed, right? So from 100 you made it 50, so here it is 100. To scale the output, what you do is you it's like half, right? So you make it by 2. So you use the 100, what output you get, like you divide by 2 at the end of the layer, so that the scaling remains same. Okay, this is what people do, but this will be done internally, you don't have to do it again and again. So it means let's say your key probability is p. This is what you have to specify. It means the dropping equal to 1 minus p. Okay, here like if you want to keep 0.2, it means you are dropping 0.8, right? So dropping is like 1 minus p, and this you use it to scale your output. So output in during testing will be this way. Okay, just like here how we have done by 2, right? So similarly we do it this way. Okay, so by doing this actually you scale it. So this is a different issue, like but like focus on this, like by making randomly making few of your cells activations as 0, what you can do is you can actually make your model not overfit and learn much better. Okay, so this is what you'll do. Okay, small correction here. So if key probability is p and like the dropout probability is like 1 minus p, then what you have is here output you scale it by p instead of 1 minus p. So that is a small correction. Please make a note of it. Okay, so this is what we'll do in only in case of testing, right? So for training, we use it like as usual. Like what you do is like you randomly like make few cells like units 0 over there, and then like do the same. And here, what you do is you will make the output while in testing, like you scale it by p. Okay, so please make a note of this correction. That's what we'll do is, so there is one more way. This is drop out, right? So where you are dropping the output of the layer, so output of the cell. So here similarly there is something like drop connect. So drop connect is something like where you have some layers. Okay, take few layers and randomly you drop few what you say, you the connections are there, right? So drop connect, which means the connections na? So out of all the connections you randomly drop few connections. Okay, it means like you randomly make few connections output from these connections as zero, so maybe those weights as zero. So connections indirectly means the weights, right? So here, so those weights you make it zero, so that is what it will do. So similar to this, like similar to dropout, here we are making output from the cell as zero. Here we are randomly making few connections as zero. So let's say you have connections here. So out of these five, like similarly you have for others as well. So you make few connections randomly as zero. Maybe you remove connections for this and this. Okay, this is way you can do. Okay, so like that. So that is how like drop connect works. It is also proved that like drop connect will also reduce overfitting. Okay, so this is about dropout, as well as like this is one type of a regularization technique. So similarly, like now we have seen dropout and drop connect, right? So similarly, like this, so there are like few other techniques which can be used to do a regularization, right? So till now we have seen three, like one, two, and this is third one, right? So let's discuss about a fourth technique. What we do is normalization. So this normalization is a critical, we call it batch normalization, because like there is something related to that. So what we do is like there are like different normalizations again, like we'll discuss that late in a different session. So but batch normalization, what does it mean is, so at the feature activation, you normalize during feature activation. So it means, so your values are there, right? So you know like that we normalize input, right? So inputs what we give, we try to scale it between like 0 to 1 or like maybe -1 to 1, right? Similarly, like even the layers what you have, right? So these activations you have some values, right? So these values what you do is, instead of giving the values what you have, again you normalize it. So treat this as a kind of input values, and these inputs values you again normalize it and then pass it to the next layers. Okay, so this is what is done here. So and you it's available as a kind of a layer, and it's actually a kind of a batch, right? So it means usually we send it in our data in terms of batches. So maybe some, usually like we have seen 32 data points at the same time, right? So for those 32, each of the feature will have like some value, right? So this has 10 for this one data point, 20 for one more data point, maybe -1 for one data point, like this. Okay, so what you do is, for these again you normalize, and again similarly for the second layer again you do normalize, for the third layer for these 32 again you do normalize, and that normalized values you pass it to the next layers. So that is what is done here. So there here again, like it's a kind of a layer which you can call batch normalization layer, so which you can call directly using TensorFlow implementation and insert it between different layers. Okay, you have a dense, you have a dense or con, and in between you keep this batch normalization normally. So what it will do is, it will take let's say 32 batch size, right? So you have 32 values here for this. So those 32 it will do a normalization, and similarly in the second as well, like again you get a 32 values for 32 batch size, right? So that again it will be normalized similarly like this. So this is one way it is proven that, because your values will be within 0 to 1 and you are normalizing for the data points, right? So it usually doesn't overfit and it will try to generalize well. So that is what has been observed by using batch normalization layer. So this is one more way to do it. Similarly, like what you can do is, like usually like one more technique what we have seen during classical machine learning is ensembling model, right? So model ensembling. So we can apply the same technique here, the ensembling model, where you take multiple models, model 1, model 2. So you train different models and take a kind of a aggregated output. Maybe do an average and take a final output. Do some average, maybe your final output. Like this you can do, that is ensembling. But let me tell you one thing, even your network, right? So if you take like this, so let me draw a simpler network. So this if you take, right? So this, can you treat this only like which I have made it darker? So let's say this is your network. So maybe which I pointed in green, right? So this is a kind of a small network. Can you treat it this way? So, right? So this is some kind of a network. Similarly, take one more, like let me draw it in one more way with a different color. So maybe which I'm drawing in red. Okay. So can we treat this as one more network? Right? So it's like actually it is, let me also draw one more with black. So maybe something which I'm drawing with black, okay, which I'm highlighting with black. Okay, so this is again one more network, right? So indirectly we are already having some kind of ensembling here. So a deep network or neural network is already a ensemble of like few networks, and we are getting like some values here. So this is one thing, like you remember, the neural network is already kind of ensemble. So it is all proven that like ensembled network will give better value compared to previous values, like single layers, right? So actually that is also a reason why your neural network is giving a better performance compared to a classical machine learning network in many of the tasks, because this is already a kind of ensemble. Okay, but on top of it, again, you can do this. So it means you are actually increasing the model size and model complexity. You train like different models and different ways, and you can aggregate the output. So that is one more way to reduce overfitting. So apart from this, so anyway, here also you have these loss functions, right? So the loss function, you can apply the same kind of norm, L1 norm or L2 norm, like what you use in like classical machine learning, right? So at the loss function. So you can use the same thing here as well, right? No, because like we already have these, so you can still use the same and get a better like result. Okay, so the loss function same like what we have for classical machine learning, right? So in case if it is a y actual minus y predict, and this is what we used to have like for loss function for what you say like regression problem. So for this you can have this L1 L2 norm. So this is like weights here. So L1 norm, and maybe you can use L2 norm as well. So this is what we used to do for regression, right? The same concept you can apply here as well. Okay, so this is one more way to do it. And apart from that, let me talk about like one more very important concept, early stopping. So you can also do a kind of early stopping. What it means is we are seeing that your training loss is decreasing, your validation loss is decreasing till one extent, and like it is increasing, right? So and you say like there is a big deviation between them. So this is what is happening. Let's say these are epochs. So for you started training for different epochs, and you got like this way. So what you can do is maybe stop at this level, right? Why do you want to make it deviate till that point? Like maybe you can stop at this level and make this as your best model. So you monitor your loss, like validation loss. So this is validation loss, this is train loss. Okay, you monitor your validation loss. If it is like if it is decreasing, then okay. If increasing, then stop it. Okay, so when it is decreasing, you allow it. When it is increasing, then you can monitor it for like 2-3 epochs and then see if it is still increasing. Then you can stop it, right, and say that like this is a model which I want. That you can do, right? So because you can't just like see it for a single epoch, because what will happen is usually this will move this way. So if it is just a single epoch, you say that it is increasing like slightly, then it means that you stop it. Then that doesn't actually make sense. So you see it for like 2-3 epochs, 4 epochs, and then depending on that, you can take a call. Okay, so this is a kind of a early stopping mechanism which can be implemented in your training network, so that you don't wait your network till you overfit. So because as you start increasing training it more and more and more, it will actually try to actually, instead of learning generalizing it, it will try to kind of remember the thing, remember the input and output. So that's why what it will we can do is like we can stop at the point where it is trying to orbit. Okay, so these are the techniques which are used for a kind of regularizing a deep neural network. Okay, so mostly like we'll use like dropout for sure. So we also use data augmentation. So and we also use drop connect. I did not use much, but batch normalization is also proved to do very good. If it is and model ensemble, mostly because each model itself is too hard, right? So too big to train. So I like actually this is not used very frequently. So L1 L2 norm is will be used like every time, and even early stopping will be used every time. So not just one technique, all these techniques can be used like to reduce this regularization for every model. Okay, so please like take into mind all these like while designing your network and while configuring it for training, right? So you make sure you have all these are applied to it. Okay, so few people don't use batch normalization in few of the networks, and but they use dropout anyway. Okay, so and data augmentation, again, if your data is not sufficient, then you can go for data augmentation. So that is how actually like regularization works, and this is how we do regularization for our deep neural networks. Okay, so that is it for today.